Therapists, our world is becoming increasingly polarized, and we see the impact of this with our clients, often in conflict or in broken relationships because of deep ideological differences. And we need to understand how to help people navigate these relationships. And the truth is, our ability to support others with this complexity begins with our ability to do this work ourselves. That's what we're talking about today on Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. And today I have the privilege of speaking with someone whose work has profoundly shaped the field of marriage and family therapy, Dr. Bill Doherty, who you may know from his groundbreaking work in discernment counseling, helping couples on the brink of divorce. But what you might not know is that Dr. Doherty is on a new mission to heal a fractured world through the nonprofit Braver Angels. Dr. Doherty, there's so much to talk about here. Where do we even begin?
I think I'd like to start by saying that the problem we're dealing with is polarization in the country. So this is a macro problem that is invading intimate life. And it's been rising for 40 years or so. This, what political scientists call affective polarization. So emotional polarization, not just about you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, you're a conservative, I'm a liberal, but how we feel about each other, that has undergone a real change over the last 40 years. Now people don't want to date somebody of the other political party, okay, right? And they don't want somebody marrying into their family of the other political party. That didn't exist before. So political identity has sort of replaced some things like religious identity, in some ways even ethnic identity, as a sort of centerpiece for who we are, what we value, right? So this has been happening in the country, and we've become increasingly rancorous about those differences. Yeah. We ourselves, as therapists, are living in this. We are influenced by this. So this isn't just trying to help clients deal with it. We're part of this as well. And so it creates, so two things are happening. One is there is more tension, struggle, conflict among loved ones who differ politically. And therapists are bringing their own internalized, polarized feelings about this. Yes. So it's very tempting if you have a client who is completely turned off by their red or blue, MAGA or left-wing relative, and you have your own feelings about who they're talking about. It creates a special challenge that we weren't really dealing with before.
Thank you so much for saying this out loud. I too am a clinical supervisor, and this has become a topic of the work recently, self-of-therapist issues that are coming up where I have been supporting clinicians who do have very strong personal feelings one way or the other and need to figure out how to be in that open, unconditionally positive regard, mental and emotional space to be of true service to clients who perhaps individually may be very different for them, or in a couple's dynamic, how to avoid even subconsciously taking one side or the other. And this is a phenomenal place for us to be talking because it's so real. And I guess I would be curious to know how you would encourage therapists to think about this, or any tips that might help them get visibility into their own stuff so that it doesn't become the client's problem.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I'd like to add actually a third category. You
Ooh.
talked about the client who differs from me. How do I feel about them? Couples who differ, and then I kind of side with one. And the other is individual clients who are complaining about their relatives, their loved
Yeah.
ones. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that side taking is very common in therapy. In other words, you're presenting your best self to me. People show up,
Yeah.
they clean up. People
Right.
in therapy in
Yes.
general,
I am
people
the
are
innocent victim.
right. And so and our job is to support them. And then they're complaining about a relative who you got one in your family,
Yeah.
and then you can do damage to that relationship by demonizing, participate in the pathologizing or demonizing of somebody not in the room. So that's the third one: the client who differs, the couple, and then perhaps it probably happens even more often that we side with our client against some horrible left
Right.
winger, right winger
Yeah.
relative.
A family member, perhaps even a partner.
Right, exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
their partner, spouse, their family members, even people people are cutting off their long term friends, very long, quasi family to them. And so, how does the therapist not over identify? The other thing I like to add is that the pandemic made this worse because we were counseling people who were making health decisions in often in a family and friendship context, health decisions that were highly politicized. Okay, mask,
Yeah.
no mask,
Yeah.
vaccines, not. People boycotting Thanksgiving. And we were making our own decisions as therapists based on who we trust in terms of public health and politics. And our clients were making that, and their loved ones were making that.
So, how do we influence our clients, for better or for worse, when we as therapists come into their system
Right.
as somebody that they are in a real relationship with,
Yep.
without being able to check our own stuff at the door
Yeah.
in a very real way?
It's a matter of being aware when we're having reactivity based on our, in this case today, based on our own political values and views, and being able to separate that out as we help our clients. Now, I want to add another thing. We're being very honest here. Okay,
Let's unpack.
Okay. So most
I love it.
therapists are liberal. Most therapists are blues. And of our professional associations, you read their statements. It's all blue. It's all liberal. It's all progressive, all the way down. Now, obviously, that's not true of all therapists. There are conservative therapists. There are people who don't identify as, either way. But as professions, it's a blue area.
Yeah.
Okay. Just as military is more red, police are more red. Okay. Business entrepreneurs more conservative. They like to minimize regulation of government. Okay. So it's not a conspiracy. But but people who are more on the liberal slant, what we brave angels we call blue, tend to gravitate towards the counseling profession.
Yeah.
And then what that means, Lisa, is when we talk to our case consultation group about how we're dealing with a client who, here's an example. Somebody, very senior therapist in a case consultation group, and she presented a case where the wife, who was blue, a Democrat, Republican, Trump supporting conservative, or red, they were really struggling about this, and the therapist was struggling to help them. And a lot of people in her case consultation group said she should divorce him. Why is she married to a guy like that? And so that's a sort of a ganging up, a collective effect, like the guy was an axe murderer or something like that. She's my goodness, but she should get out before she's the next victim, right? So we can have this collective mindset that comes from the culture of progressive politics that we can take for granted in the therapy world.
Yeah. Woo. That therapists need to be aware of how they are impacting the system of their clients, but also the system that we ourselves are living in, the water of the tank in which we are swimming, and how does that influence our thinking and feeling and behaving?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Yes.
There's a lot here. And I think that this also might be a nice segue to move into what you're doing with your Braver Angels project, which is focused on helping people get visibility into their own perspective and develop ways of communicating with and understanding people with different perspectives. And I've heard you speak before that step one is getting a handle on your own reactivity, your own emotional enmeshment. And I'm wondering if that might be a transferable thing for therapists occupying the space to start working on first too, just their own.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Braver Angels, we started about 9 years ago, pretty much by happenstance, when two colleagues invited me to facilitate a workshop with Hillary Clinton voters and Donald Trump voters.
Good times.
And I foolishly agreed to do it to see if they could talk with each other and not just about each other. And it was very successful. It was very powerful as people got to know each other beyond the stereotypes of what's a Trump voter or Hillary voter, and and finding common ground. And we decided to keep going. So it was just like, hey, we'll do it once and we'll keep going. So now it's national nonprofit. We've done thousands of workshops. And so we have workshops where we bring people together across differences, small groups. And then we have skills workshops where we teach larger groups the skills and how to communicate across difference. Like one of our workshops is called Skills for Disagreeing Better. Okay. And then we have moderators of workshops who we train, and the training is free and all of our workshops are free. And we have a mental health caucus, we call it. So there's a group of therapists who meet monthly on Zoom and talk about these issues that you and I are talking about today. So I encourage folks who are interested to Google Braver Angels, learn about the organization, become a member for $12. A lot of therapists have the skills to learn how to moderate these workshops, and then join up with the mental health caucus. So that's about Braver Angels. And so having gotten involved in this, I began to then develop ways to bring what I was learning into the therapy room, because as you were saying, it's happening more and more. And the change that occurred in me through Braver Angels was that Braver Angels, the leadership is half red, half blue, and plus some independence. So for the last 9 years, I've been engaging all of the time with people who have different political views than I do. And people become friends. And so I can see where we differ, but I also see where we are similar in terms of a lot of core values. And I've come to understand the key difference between policy views and core values. I used to equate them more. I used to think, say, if you were against affirmative action, you were against equal opportunity for Black Americans and other Americans. And I came to realize that things like affirmative action is a policy. It's a policy. It's not a core value. It's a means to an end. The value is Americans having an equal chance to make it if they put work into their lives. That is widely shared.
Yeah.
That's neither a red nor blue value.
Right.
However, how we go about achieving that is a policy, it's a means. And part of what's happened is that if we differ on a policy, then, or who we vote for, we assume we know lots about that person. We assume we know their heart. We assume we know their soul. We assume that we know their moral conscience.
And that it's bad.
And that is bad. If it's not mine, it's bad. It's bad, right? People on the conservative side assume if you're for expanding the social safety net, you want to grow government. Okay, and people will be dependent on government.
Yeah, enable freeloaders,
and they'll vote for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so ultimately, both sides attribute negative motives to the other. Okay, around immigration, you want more immigration because you want people to come and vote for you. They're going to be grateful to you, right? You oppose more immigration, or you want to remove people who are not documented, and that's because you are A, cruel, and B, you want to keep all the goodies for yourself. And neither side recognizes themselves. Neither side recognizes their own conscience, their own core values in those attributions we make. Okay, so the application for therapists, one of the things about preparing oneself not to be reactive is to have relationships with people who differ from you politically, to read about the best thinkers on the other political side, the people who are smarter than you and I are. Okay, not necessarily your brother-in-law who, maybe he's doesn't
a little iffy. Got it.
A little iffy. Okay, but what we often do is we compare the best people and the best thinkers and the most moral people on our own side with the worst on the other side. Okay, then we just thereby come to see people who differ from us politically as incomprehensible. How could they possibly think that way, vote that way? Incomprehensible. And maybe ill motivated. Okay, so I'm talking about the stuff. This is the internalized polarization. So one of our workshops called Depolarizing Ourselves, we talk about the 4 horsemen of polarization: stereotyping, dismissing, ridiculing, and contempt. Stereotyping, dismissing, ridiculing, and contempt for tens of millions of people, some of whom are in our families, who think and vote differently. Okay. And that is an internal negativity. It's a kind of a racism, if you will. I mean, but applied to, because racism is about stereotypes and negative affect. It's about all those things. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is this is an ism, if you will, about people who we think we know and understand, and then we can dismiss them. And so it's 2 levels of getting past our own reactivity in the therapy room. The first one, I think I could always do reasonably well, and that is understand that I'm not in charge of this couple's life. I'm not in charge of anybody's life. They have certain kinds of political attitudes and values, and like for couples, a lot of times they married each other knowing this. Okay, and so I try to go beneath, what's going on beneath that difference, and not bring my own reactivity there, and that's all good. With Braver Angels, I've come to understand and help people understand each other better, because I understand better than I used to what values people have that may be in common beneath their differences. Okay, so here's an example. A woman I did a consultation with who was struggling with her mother, who was a strong conservative, both politically and religiously, because a lot of times the religion and the politics go together. Her daughter who is now middle-aged. She's religiously more liberal and politically more liberal. And her mother gives her a hard time on this whenever they talk. Okay. And the daughter who I did the consultation with was struggling with that and feeling judgmental about her mother because the daughter was liberal. Mother was campaigning. She was door knocking for Trump in her 80s. Okay. And continually sending her daughter what her daughter thought was propaganda. Okay. So
facts, alternative facts.
Yeah, in her face. Okay. And so the daughter wanted to have some consultation to think about this.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, so just think, put your therapist mindset on this. Some therapists would mother is clearly in a cult, blah, blah, blah,
right.
And then, that's not going to be very helpful, and over identify with the daughter. You can help her in such ways of how can she clearly, firmly, but sensitively let her mother know she's not interested in the material, doesn't read it, please stop.
Yeah.
And switch conversations that go off the rails. Okay. So setting some boundaries, some healthy boundaries, but also then this is the next part of it is helping the daughter let go of her disappointment that her mother was for Trump. Because the daughter was feeling her own level of dysregulation of this person that she knows and loves so much. Could be, a MAGA person. So there was unnecessary, self-generated emotional pain on the daughter's part because she could not accept her mother's political decisions. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the way I put this when I teach therapists is that when a client can't self-regulate well in the presence of a loved one having a different political view, the lack of self-regulation, that's on the client. That's not on the other person. Now, you could set boundaries about the other person's behavior. But if I go, how could she? And I've been doing that for the last 15 years, that's on me. And so to help, so one of the key things is to help this client let go of trying to change her mother. Because a lot of the conflict that occurs and the stress is of people trying to change each other's minds. So argue her mother out of her fondness for Trump, not going to work. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the third level, this is then where I got to that. I don't think I would have maybe gotten to as much before Braver Angels work, is that I said, wow, your mother is in her 80s, involved in politics, cares about her world and her community, and is door knocking. Wow. And the client said, I guess that is a wow, isn't it? She wants to make the world better as she sees the world. Yeah. And then I said, so I'm talking to somebody right now who is also an activist politically. I wonder where that came from. Okay. So then I got to the level of, hey, there's a similarity here. But the last level is, she said, I wish my mother could let go of being disappointed in me. So that now we're getting to some of the core, right? We want our parents to be proud of us. And her mother was proud of her, except around her religion and her politics, which are very important to this client. And so then I said, so I'd like to do a thought experiment with you. She had a couple of teenage girls who were thoroughly liberal, like mom. And I said, I'd like to imagine that, it's 20 to 30 years out, and you're talking to one of your daughters who has become conservative politically. And and your daughter says, tell me more about the time when Trump was president and we had a chance to make America great again that we botched. Tell me more about that time. And then the client went, whew. I said, well, how would you feel?
Yeah, breathing. Right.
Does the word disappointment come to mind?
Yeah.
She said, I would feel like maybe I'd failed as a parent in some way. Mm. And I said, well, how about your mom? So she could identify, not agree with, but she could identify her mother's feeling of disappointment.
Wow.
Now, all this is different from her mother. If your mother keeps saying that to you, that's a different story. But I'm talking about having the feeling and it's sort of, and knowing it.
Yeah. But I'm also sitting here thinking that I would imagine it would have been very difficult for you to facilitate that work had you not done your own work by putting yourself into these experiential environments where you were challenged and pushed into contact with your own feelings and then had to find this place inside of yourself. Without that self-of-therapist work, do you think that could have happened?
Well, I don't think I would have gotten to all of those levels.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have gotten to some of them. And I don't want to sort of glorify it. It's a question of training yourself to role take people who are different from you in a way that sees them in their humanity.
Okay. So here's a thing for you. I think for people and also therapists, that part can feel very, very, very difficult when someone is viewed as being complicit in a not just dangerous, but actively harmful practice almost. And so in advance of this conversation, I had a question come in from someone who is a therapist, okay, who is a amazing therapist doing incredible things in the world with a challenging population, noble work, and is, among other things, so nonprofit, but also actively involved in a variety of volunteering opportunities and volunteers with a woman of retirement age who is also a committed volunteer. So Meals on Wheels, all kinds of things like helping needy families through her church and independently. And had an encounter with this woman who the therapist knows to be a red Trump supporter, and asked this person how it is they can be accepting of, and again, this is this therapist's viewpoint, so I want to be careful with this, but the complicitness around sexual assault, child abuse, some of the things that have come out through recent investigations, the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, and that this woman she's in a relationship with said, well, people like that just have more testosterone. He probably did it so they can't help themselves. And the therapist is like, I don't know that I can be in a relationship with somebody who views this behavior as just part of what happens, and this almost collusion. And also, just transparently, this therapist works with abused children, sexual assault survivors. So has a front row seat to people who are abused. And I think that what can frequently happen in professionals, but also individuals, is a horror that if I am in a relationship with this person who could be involved in harming other people, what does that mean about me? Have you heard that before?
Oh, sure.
Coming up. So I'm curious to hear your reactions. Because she's coming from, so this is like somebody who believes in rape culture, and I am working every day to heal people who have been victimized by this.
And what was the nature of the relationship again that she had?
They volunteer together. Together. And I think there are some social connections, but so it's not like a mom or a sister.
A couple. It's a great. I'm so glad this person raised this. I always start with, what's the nature of the relationship?
Yeah.
Is this your mother? Is this your sister? Is this your spouse? I mean, these are relationships of commitment, of responsibility.
Yeah.
Somebody you are at the food shelter with.
Exactly.
It's a different. You don't owe them to work everything through and to do all your internal work. Okay. So that I just want to make that point. Where it gets more complicated is when this person is in your life, like in your family, and there would be a lot involved in just saying, I will never deal with you again. I will never talk to you again. How far do you go, right? I'll never be in your presence again, right?
Yeah.
And setting off shockwaves through your family. So that's one thing I want to say. The second thing is that even regardless of the relationship, it's really tempting to take somebody who has not thought about something very much and their throwaway line. Oh, yeah, I guess. I mean, there's, a throwaway line and a kind of a superficial statement that A, maybe they haven't thought about it, and B, they have some desire not to seem disloyal to their group. So if you're a Trump supporter and you think this Jeffrey Epstein thing is designed to just hurt Trump, you want it to go away. Okay. And so you could end up saying stupid things like that, particularly if you haven't thought about it. If I want to put my braver angels hat on, which I don't always.
Yeah, that's what I was like. How would braver angels handle this?
I don't have to do that. In other words, that's why I started. What's the net relationship? I might go, well, that's the last time I'm talking about anything serious with that person. And that's fine. I don't owe them.
Yeah.
I don't owe them. But if I wanted to put my braver angels hat on, and with somebody in my network of real relationships, I might say I really want to put my braver on. But let's just say I'm going to try it out. It would be to be curious, to ask non-judgmental questions.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. That's boy, that wasn't the way I was thinking about it. I'm curious. Could you say more about what testosterone? I mean,
what are we talking about right now? Like, what's okay?
More, right? I mean, all men have testosterone, but not all men are, out there raping women. I mean, could you say more?
Yeah.
In other words, non-judgmentally, tell me more, as opposed to you had this throwaway line. It's kind of like if somebody said, well, some women, the way they dress, they're asking for it. I mean, that's appalling in this, in this world now. It's appalling. Okay.
Right.
But you have a choice about whether to just walk away, or to say, tell me more about where you're coming from in terms of women's responsibility versus the responsibility of men. Okay. And then try to understand where they're coming from. Suspending for the time being my own response.
Yeah. And staying calm emotionally. Yeah. I mean, if we get all activated and triggered, I mean, that's very hard to do.
Exactly. So there's more. And so I'm going to expand on that question, because this comes up a lot from blues, and particularly people on the progressive side, of feeling that if they continue to have a relationship with somebody, and now I'm talking about not optional, really. It's like family, spouse, your brother. Talking about these are ongoing relationships. I'm not talking about somebody where it's entirely optional, but to continue to stay in a relationship with somebody who hold views that they consider repugnant, harmful is the word.
Yeah.
That somehow you're compromising your own integrity.
That's what it is.
Right. Okay. And it's a really important question. And my response is that it's not making the distinction between words and actions. Somebody who says, well, men have a lot of testosterone or women are asking for whatever, if that person is not a rapist, if that person is not, Jeffrey Epstein's woman friends who set up, they're not, what they're responsible for is their words and their attitudes. They're not the rapists.
Yeah.
What's happened, I can do, we're evangelists now, I can do critiques of the right or the left. So this is my critique of the left here, is of confusing words and deeds. Now, words can hurt, for sure, and we are much more aware of that. And many of us are much more aware and careful about the words we use. But they're not the same thing as violence.
Yeah.
They're not the same thing as theft of physical destruction. They are insensitive words and maybe hateful words. But what we have just seen this week that you and I are talking is Charlie Kirk being assassinated for words. Okay, for speech. And some of what's happened, and apparently, from what they know, by a young man who became politicized to the left and wanted to take him out because he considered Kirk a hater. So this young man moved into action to do the most hateful thing you can do, is to kill somebody.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you hate the hater, and then eventually somebody decides they're going to be a hero and kill the hater. So it's this, my response to the question is that my integrity is not compromised if I work to stay in a relationship with somebody whose views I disagree with and whose views I think are ultimately, if they're implemented in policy, are harmful. It doesn't compromise my integrity to stay in that relationship.
Yeah. And
I think it's part of how we've gotten in such trouble with cutoffs over political views. That I need to be able to self-regulate and stay in a relationship if it's an important relationship, give myself that choice without the sense that I am compromising myself. Because what it leads to, Lisa, is that I either exit or I call you out for your harmful language. And of course, that does nothing but drive you away. Nothing but drive. So the thought experiment I use sometimes when I talk about this is, so you have a nephew who is a neo-Nazi. So let's just say that's part of a real hate group. Okay? Real hate group. Should you never invite him to Thanksgiving dinner? Should you boycott the Thanksgiving dinner when his mother is holding it and you're invited because of his hateful attitudes and speech? And my view is no. He's a member of the family. If he was invited before he became a neo-Nazi, invite him now. He's got to follow some ground rules. I mean, he's got to not come in and spew lots of crap, okay? Right? He's got to behave himself. Everybody has to behave yourself when we're together. But to cut him off from people who have a better moral code is to cast him into the utter darkness with those other people.
That's right. You would cut the lifeline and that kid goes floating off into outer space.
And it does not compromise me to say to him, how are you doing? How's your life going?
Yeah.
Okay. To let him know that I care about him in some way.
You get curious. What about this appeals to you? If you want to get
if he was really willing to go there. Right.
Yeah.
And then to say calmly, see, after you have talked with somebody, if they're willing to be open, to just say, I think you should probably know that for me, this is the opposite of how I view that group of people, how I view our world, and
Absolutely.
I understand, that where you are now, and I just I'm in a very different place, and I care about you. I do not care about your views. Okay.
Well, and what this is also bringing up for me is something that I've heard you say before, and you had a beautiful, pithy way of saying it that I'll probably botch, but you have to walk a mile in another person's news.
That's right.
Understanding that they are inhabiting a reality where they are getting curated information that creates their narrative of what the world is about, how it works, what's going on, that is entirely different from yours. And that these systemic influences have a very powerful force in people's lives. And that sometimes we cannot understand that when somebody is then coming as an emissary from this reality bubble, and we're like, what are you talking about?
And so as therapists, this is about context. And as therapists, that's what we do for a living. Somebody is angry all the time. They're angry. What's going on? Okay.
How does it make sense?
What's their current and past environment? What's their context that led them to get through one bad relationship after another? Okay. And we don't just say, well, foolish girl, why are you doing that? What's going on here? Okay. What's underneath it? But we don't do it with politics. So my challenge to therapists is to do the same thing with political difference that we do with everything else. That we all come from a context. We all come from, and it doesn't make you a bad person, an ill-motivated person. Now, here's the humility part of it, because one of the reasons why, it's one of the things it takes to be a good therapist is to be able at some point to be willing to say to yourself, there, but for the grace of God go I. If I had grown up that way, would I have made all kinds of good decisions? Okay. No guarantees here. Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, that goes way back to Carl Rogers, put yourself in the shoes. Okay. We all are capable of terrible choices. And I'm saying apply that to people who differ politically, who are clients or who are loved ones of clients. Because what we do, and the question was a good illustration of it. And again, I'm so glad it came in. Not knowing somebody in depth and then taking a line like that. And then not knowing where it really comes from, not having a context for that. So one of the things I'd like to say is that behind every powerful political view, and I would say behind every off-the-wall view, there is a story. There's a story that could be uncovered. And as therapists, that's our job, is to get the story. But if our own reactivity is too high, we're not going to get it. We're going to take sides, and we're not going to encourage our client to be curious of somebody in their life. Now, the other thing I want to add, because here I'm talking about the soft skills or curiosity and so on, acceptance, we also have to help our clients be able to set good boundaries. So just as I have to give up trying to change you on something important, we call that the prime directive. Never try to change another person's views on something that's important to them. I'm not going to let you badger me to change my views. And so in Braver Angels, we have a whole set of skills for how to set limits. And so therapists can teach those as well. But you can set limits on somebody's behavior without demonizing them. Okay. So, so Mom, the last 38 times we've gotten into that discussion, it didn't go well. So how about if we skip it this time? Okay. You can do it with a little humor. Okay. In our Families and Politics workshop, we talk about these different family roles. particularly in a group. And so we talk about the gladiator and the defender and the sniper, one of my favorite. That's the relative. You're in a conversation, it's going fairly civil. And then somebody says, so what does our feminist socialist think about that one? Boom. Okay? And then, okay. What does our MAGA cult follower think? And so what we teach is, and so therapists can help clients teach this, is to rise above it. Don't take the bait. It's not a question. It's not a question. Okay. It's a bait. And so one of the things you can do is to say, well, this feminist socialist actually would like some more potatoes. Could somebody pass those on down? Just rise above it. Okay? Yeah. And the thing about families is they're very predictable. These roles are very predictable. And so
there it is.
Prepare. So I'll have clients practice, prepare. Okay. And then other ones just exit. We talk about soft exit skills, medium exit skills, hard exit skills. I mean, so that we can help our clients set limits and boundaries without counterattacking the other person, and without having contempt for the other person.
Right. Yeah. So important. And, to your point, we have had an amplification very recently. There was a terrible assassination that occurred the week that we are talking. And things it's like ratcheting up, and it feels more and more fraught with these different things. And if there's ever been a time to get involved in a Braver Angels movement, either personally or professionally, it is now. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what is going on in Braver Angels. How might people get involved personally, professionally, and your vision for the purpose that this movement serves, your hope for it in this current time, because I think it's so important.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we're increasing using the terms like courageous citizenship, okay, in a divided era, and the courage to connect across differences. And, that's a lot of what we do in therapy is help people connect across conflict and differences. So for therapists, if we can expand our sense, it's sort of like people who are dispositionally interested in diverse viewpoints. Well, add politics in there, because a lot of people into diversity cut it off at that point. Okay?
That's right.
And so the ultimate thing is to be interested in hearing about somebody who doesn't believe in diversity. You see what I'm saying? It's sort of, so the best way to start getting involved is to Google Braver Angels and join as a member. For $12, you can also just be a subscriber, and then find out about the loads of things that are going on. We have chapters in all the states, and we have workshops that people can take either locally, or if they don't have a chapter around them, they're national Zoom websites. Some of them, as I said, are where you engage with people across differences, and some of them are teaching skills workshops. I'm a long-term couples therapist, and some of those principles therapists will see in the design of these workshops, because you don't let just good people go at each other. We set up opportunities for people to listen, to be able to articulate not only what they like about their views and positions, but also what their concerns are, how things can go wrong with their own viewpoints. So we invite humility in this. As I said, we have local chapters where people can connect with each other. We have a debate series, particularly college campuses, but also in communities. A different kind of debate where there's not a winner or loser, and where people debate topics in a civil way. And some of it is the design. So an example of how we design things. Somebody gives a speech for a proposition, right, about let's get rid of certain kinds of guns, and somebody has a chance afterwards to ask a question. They ask the question through the chair, not to the person. So I say, so Madam Chair, I wonder if the last speaker is aware of research showing that blah, 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 blah. As opposed to turning directly to that person and saying, are you not aware of the reason? And so that's an example of the sort of guardrail that gets in there. And if the question was really obnoxious, which doesn't happen that often, the chair would say, okay, let's rephrase that. Okay.
That there's active moderation to kind of keep everybody calm.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so, one of my favorite workshops is called a Common Ground workshop. The first one we did was on abortion. We had 8 pro-choice people, 8 pro-life people. And what we do is we have people tell some of the story about how they got passionate about this. There's a story.
Yeah, there's a story.
So begin with the story. You don't begin with your position. You begin with your story, your values. So you get into values, you get into your concerns, and then you get into what kind of policies we'd want to have.
Right.
Okay. And then what happens there is that the reds and blues go to separate spaces, and they come up with a list of values, concerns, and policy solutions that they hold and that they think the other side could agree to. In other words, after some deep listening, you roll take them, and then you come up with things that you think they might agree to. Then they come together, and there's a report out on clarification, and then they vote on values, concerns, and solutions. And it has to be a unanimous vote. And some of them are close to unanimous, and then you go back into separate groups to kind of clean up the language and then come back and see if you have unanimous agreement.
Oh, my goodness.
That group, the first one we did on abortion, they come up with 21 points of agreement, including about policy solutions like better sex education in schools, a better mother nutrition, infant nutrition, WIC program. Now, why would conservatives who also were pro-life want this federal program to be beefed up? Because they want women to feel like they could feed their baby and have the child. So that was a point of agreement. So anyway, it's therapists could see a lot of what they deeply value and cherish, and some skills in Brave Ranchers. And we have this group who meets every month with speakers and conversation. And there, by the way, Lisa, you'll find, if you're a blue therapist, you'll find some red therapists.
There are red therapists.
So the last thing I'll say about Brave Angels then is that at our leadership and all of our committees, the leadership is half red, half blue. Okay. So we are continually checking one another about how we use language, what our assumptions is, and we develop relationships across that divide.
Yeah. And I think that that's really what it is all about. Authentic, respectful, loving relationships with people who are different than you. And there are all up and down the chain. How do we support that with our clients and their intimate relationships? How do we operate with love in those situations and in our own relationships? How do we work at a community level to foster those conversations? And I'll also just share with listeners, and I've heard you say this before, your organization and you are also seeking to do this at the highest levels of government to support our federal leaders in doing some of this work in order to become better able to have constructive, respectful conversations and hopefully build some bridges to the center.
Yeah, we do workshops for local elected officials. We've done them for state legislatures. The New Hampshire State Legislature has a Brave Angels caucus at this point.
Amazing.
We did five workshops for them. And we've done a handful with Congress. So if people are looking for a little hope, Google the Problem Solvers Caucus in Congress, which is a group of 30 Republicans and 30 Democrats who come together for a meal once a week, break bread together, get to know each other, and who work on some bipartisanship. And we've done workshops for them as well. And one of the things we do with those elected officials is we have them in small groups, and we ask them all to answer this question: what life experiences have influenced your values and beliefs about public policy and public service? What life experiences have influenced your values and beliefs about public policy and public service? Every time I've done this, there's not a dry eye in the room. as people, they dig deep. They talk about their family, they talk about tragedy, they talk about inspiration. And then I always like to quote a line from one of those members when I asked at the end, what are you taking with you from this? He said, you can't fight somebody in the same way when you know their heart. You can't fight somebody in the same way when you know their heart. With therapists, we're in the heart business.
We are in the heart business. Yeah. I'm just sitting here thinking how perfect the name of your organization is, Braver Angels, because what we're talking about today requires so much courage and strength, emotional strength. I mean, this is very powerful stuff, but it's like we're going in looking for the noble intentions, right? That the courage to connect with the angel that does live inside of everybody, that we just haven't come to understand yet. And that once we do, it changes the experience. It doesn't have to change our perspective or what we believe, but it creates more opportunities and at least fosters connection.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and our friends who are here with us and explaining all of these things, but also just on behalf of me and everybody listening, thank you so much for your work. I mean, people probably tell you this all the time, but I'm going to embarrass myself and do it again. You are changing the world. You are on a mission that few, I don't want to say that. I'm sure that many people are on this mission with you, but you are a leader on this mission that seems to me to be rare. What we see in the world is people who are very upset or maybe trying to be neutral, but you are taking a stand in the opposite direction that is just very rare, very refreshing. And I don't know how else we are going to make it through this without your kind of leadership.
Thank you. And I invite others into it.
Yeah.
Invite others into it.
Well, thank you for inviting us into it today. So you guys, Dr. Bill Doherty, connect with him. Google him, braverangels.org to get involved, to start a chapter, to get training. Also for clients, there is a free training, an online training that you have put together that anybody can enroll in. You could use that as a complement to your work. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Well, we have e-courses.
E-courses.
Skills for communicating across the divide. We have a families in politics e-course, a social media e-course. So these are free. They're about 45, 50 minutes. They're well designed. We had volunteer professional designers do this because I'm a volunteer on this, and most of the people doing the work have been volunteers. So so clients can benefit from this as well.
Excellent. Well, team, I'm going to put links to all of these in the show notes of today's podcast so that you can check them out, and please share them with your clients. Use these tools in your practice, and one by one together, we're all enrolled in this mission now, and we'll work through it.
Thank you so much, Lisa.